Hello, and welcome back to another lesson on basic UI customization. Today we're going to talk about sliders. The default component slider that a lot of you might be familiar with is great, but it is not very friendly looking for graphical interfaces for a kid's project or some other customized look and feel that your art department might have given you. Usually, this slider will not be good enough for that. It just isn't the right look. So we want to create one that we can customize that is good for, whatever design that you want might need to do. So we're going to create a version that we're going to start with a basic version, and then we'll show you how to add some graphics to it to make it look a lot better to match whatever your designer has brought to you. So we're going to start with this container right here, and we're going to pop out a view for us to look at while we're coding it, just to make it easy to pay attention and see the results. I'm going to go into here, and we're going to recreate this. So the first thing I'm going to do is delete it all, start fresh. So we need to make, there's two main parts when you make a slider. There is the handle that you actually drag back and forth, and then there's the background. So we're going to start with just a container. And that container, we're going to rename handle. We are going to set its width, and this is just a personal choice I've made for this tutorial. I'm going to set it for a width of 50, and we are going to set its height to 80. Also, we need to set the origin, which is where the center XY is on this thing, because when we're dragging it around, we want to measure from the center. So we're going to change this horizontal origin to 0.5, and we're going to change this vertical origin to 0.5. All right. Now, of course, right now, it doesn't look like anything fancy, so we are going to drop in a rectangle to be our standing graphic for right now. And there it is. And we doesn't really care what we name it. We're going to drop that into the background, and we're going to change a couple of things here. So I'm just going to set it to pixels and just same size that I had for the handle. I'll set it for 50, height of 80, and we need it set it to pixels. And we need to then go into, I'm sorry, that should have been the resolution. The resolution, custom resolution, there it is. Okay, so we set that to width of 50, height of 80. Then we go back to our size here. We can just go to fraction and set it 1 to 1. That gives us a box that fills up the entire space. Great. We also, just for make it a little prettier, let's round the corners. Let's set the border to pixels and to 3. And that now gives us our handle. And you can see it down here in the corner, and we'll end up moving that into the proper place. The next thing we need to do is have our background box that it slides, a little track that it slides in. So again, we'll do another rectangle. And this background, we're going to change the resolution to the full height and width of the parent. And you can do it programmatically, which is the way I'm used to doing it, but there is an option called parent panel size that automatically makes it fill whatever its parent is, which is this right here. That's a tip from Alpha Moonbase. I just am not used to doing it that way, but definitely a good tip. Saves you a little bit of writing some code. The next thing we need to do is set the width of the and height of the box inside here. So we're going to set that to pixels. And we are going to set the width. I like to do it 80%. So I'm going to get the parent width. And then we're going to divide, or we're going to multiply it times 0.8. So make it 80%. Then I would like to take the handle height, which is currently 80, but dynamically we'll just put it in with this way in case we ever to go back and decide to change that. So we'll go to OP, we'll target the handle, and we will get its width and that's 50. But actually we want we want to do the height of the handle, and then we want to multiply that times 0.5. So we'll get half height. So now we need to plug that into the background of this. So I'm going to just make a null, and I'm going to rename that BG for background. And I've already got this panel set because I previously had worked on it. But if you go into look, you set ./BG, / makes it look inside of itself. BG is the name of that rectangle, or that null. Okay, so we have the handle and we have the track. But they're not in the right place yet. So we need to make this handle float in the center and be draggable. So in order to do that, we go to panel, and we go to the drag to reposition, and we turn it to component. So now, by default, it's set to an X range of 0 to 100, and Y is set to 0 to 100 well. So you basically have a 100 by 100 box that you can now drag this around inside of. Of course, we need it to get onto the line and then slide back and forth on the line. So we need to properly set this range. I'm going to do that with a little bit of code here. So we're dealing with the X. So from left to right, we made this background 80%. So we want the beginning of the range to start at 10% of whatever the parent width is and go to 90% of whatever the parent width is. So writing in just a little bit of code here, we say me.parent dot width times 0.1, that's 10%. So that gets us our starting point. Now, in addition to doing it this way, we also want to take into account the width of the handle itself. We want to make sure that this goes all the way to the end, because right now it stops right at the edge versus being centered on that edge. So in order to get that centered on the edge, we need to take in half the width. We need to basically subtract half the width of the handle. So we can do that by saying me, because we're in the handle right now, and saying par.width divided by 2. And that will subtract half the width and allow us to center our handle on that line there, so that our slider feels like, most sliders feel like they go to the edge there and center on the end and the beginning and the end. So that is how we set the starting range. We are going to do the exact same. I'm just copy and paste to the upper end of the X range, except we want it to be on 0.9, 90%. So now we can drag from left to right. Fantastic. Okay, but you notice that we have vertical drift here. We're able to drag up and down. We actually want that just lock in the center. We're going to use a little more code here, and we're going to say me.parent height divided by 2, and we're also going to subtract the half height of the handle. So we'll do me.par.h divided by 2 again. So it's height instead of width this time. And now that sets it. And we're going to use the same exact number for the minimum and maximum state of the H range, because we don't want it to go up and down. We want it to just stay right at that center line. So now that we've locked that in, we now have a slider that can go from left to right, and it's doing its thing. That's great. Okay, so now we need to add some output to this thing and put a label on top of it as kind of a minimum look here. So to get the position of where this thing is, we need to figure out where the handle is in a relative space to the background. So to do that, we're just going to add a little constant chop here, and that will be where we put in our math for the handle. And what we're going to do is we're going to it's not even going to be math. We're just going to take the X position of the handle and just drop it into this first constant here. And so you just click on this expansion and we'll type in OP dot, I'm sorry, OP parentheses, quote, handle, and your parentheses, dot par dot, I'm sorry, dot par dot X. And now that gives us a number to work with. Of course, that number is not 0 to 100, so we need to now rearrange it and put it in using a math shop. We will change the range. And we're going to adjust that range so that it is in alignment with that background math that we did. So we're going to be changing the range. The from to range is going to be starting at me.parent dot par dot width, or you can type in width. There's two ways of getting to that variable. Times 0.1. That gives us that start again. We can copy and paste that down to the second one, do 0.9. So that gives us that 10% to 90% to keep that 80% width. If that, hopefully that math clicks in your head that that's right. And then we need to change our output range from 0 to 100. There we go. So now we have a 0 to 100. If you look in that math channel there, it's currently has a decimal point. I prefer that to be an integer. So we can go back to our math here, go to OP, and we can make the integer by just rounding. So now we have rounded to the nearest integer, and that gives us our range of 0 to 100. Fantastic. So now let's get another container in here that will become our label that floats above the container. So, I'm sorry, above the handle. So we'll call this label. And I'm just going to parent it to the handle. That just makes it easier. And then we're going to create a text top to put our actual label into from the math here. So we're going to, and then I'll drag that onto the background so that fits. And we will change the resolution to match the label resolution. So I'll go in here and just say OP label dot width and also height. All right, and we'll properly size that so that it is, let's do 100 by 50. So 100, a width of 100 by a height of 50. And now we need to figure out what the label needs to display here. So we go to our text one, we go to text, we expand this down, and now we need to type in, this needs to be, so the integer, the 100% coming out is if we target that, OP math one, then we do a square bracket so we can talk to the channel, chan one. That is probably, I think, going to give us an error when we do that. And you have to tell it to, I guess it doesn't actually. For whatever reason, I thought but the reason I say is we got to do a little extra here because I don't want that decimal point. So what I want to do is the easiest way to round that off is to make it an int. So right now it's displaying as a float. We're going to make it an int. But if I do that, a lot of times I'll get an error. So I usually have to do that as a string. Again, it's not doing it to me now, but I'm just going to do it anyway. I'm going to add a string wrapper to this. So now it's 100 and it's a string. Then we're going to add to it a percentage sign. So plus percentage. And now we're going to tweak the font size a little bit. We'll go to font. We'll take the size to 15. Great. And we need to offset it. So I'm going to click on the label container and I'm going to change the X to be, let's see here. We'll make the X to center it over top of it. So we'll go and type OP handle, and we will grab the dot width, and we will divide by 2, and that centers it up on top of it. And that's kind of hard to see right now because it's floating here. So we need to change the vertical to get it up above. So now let's change that height. So we click again on label, we go to Y, and let's do OP handle again. And now we're going to do the height. And we're going to do plus, let's do plus 30. And that puts it up above the handle. That looks a little off. And I think that's because, let's see, why is that? Why is that in a weird place? Probably because I need to center my my origin on my label. So let's go ahead and go to origin. Let's set that to 0.5. There we go. And I don't know if I don't think I have to do that on. There we go. So I set my origin to center it on the center of the label box. It's a little confusing, but that origin stuff makes it just a real big difference on your alignment when you're trying to center things up. So by setting it to the center, it just helps all the math and make it a little easier. So now we have we have a label. We have a label on top. We have a handle. We are able to drag it. This is a slider. But you know, a lot of the sliders, a lot of the way people are used to working with sliders is not 0 to 100, but 0 to 1. So let's do one more math shop here. Math. And let's just change that range from what we now know to be 0 to 100. And now it's just going to be 0 to 1. And then we're going to stick that to an out. And now it reacts like the built-in slider. We're going to be outputting a 0 to 1 value that we can use in the interface. All right, great. I want to add one more piece of look and feel here. I'm going to duplicate our rectangle, and I'm going to change the color I'm just going to change it to orange. And what I'm going to do is I want to set its size based on the percentage. So what we're going to do here is go to, let's see here, the size. We're going to take, it's already currently set to 80%. Okay, so that's kind of the starting place that's the biggest it can be. So now we're going to multiply it times that percentage of math 1 chop. So OP math, actually we're going to do math 2 to 0 to 1. It makes it real simple. So basically we're giving it another percentage to multiply against based on what the real output percentage is. So if I hit that, I get a little error here, and that's because I forgot the channel. Chan 1. There we go. So now it's giving me, if you can see there, you see that bar is filling up based on the percentage. Fantastic, but we actually need to justify it left. Okay, but we need to offset it so that it is starting at 10%. So it lines up with the other one. So we'll go to the center, X, and we're going to type in me.parent dot width, and we're going to multiply that times 0.1. let's see, did I do that? Oh, and I've also got to set it to pixels. Sorry. So let me type in that one more time. E dot parent dot width times 0.1. Sorry, 0.1. All right, so now I get a fill that is the proper width of whatever the percentage is. So now we need to combine those two using either a composite or an over. We'll just do an over. So we take that over. Bottom one is the background fully filled. Top one is that percentage fill. And now we can plug that into our BG. And now we have that fill different color on the other side of the bar. And that's it. We have now made a custom slider based on just a couple of containers and very little code, just a little bit of snippets here and there. And that gives us our 0 to 100. If I back out here, I can now connect that back into our null. And you can see that performs just like the normal built-in comp slider. If I activate it here. So yeah, we're able to this is a fully working custom slider. Fantastic. So let's go and look how this differs. It's really just graphics. We're just changing out the graphics. So if I look in here, I have done a little bit of, I've imported a PNG file. I've transformed it to give me some border space around it. Then I've just copied it, inverted it, made it black, blurred it, and offset it so that I could add a drop shadow behind it. And that just gives me a nicer looking handle. I've changed the font to a different color and a different font face. I'm using Arial black. I've changed the fill to a gradient. I have imported actually I haven't imported anything. I'm using built-in rectangle with rounded corner, but I'm using a couple of them. I'm combining and comping over the gradient here. I made another one underneath and offset it so I get a little highlight underneath the bar. Then I fed it into yet another one. This is the actual bar that, like our previous example, this is the actual background bar. The rest of it is just comped in behind it because you can, whenever you have a rectangle, you can go to output and basically tell it to show all the previous stuff that's in the chain. So it's just a shortcut to comping. But if you just turn that off, this is still the standard fill bar. We're just adding some decoration behind it. And then that, just as the previous example that we just completed there, we've got that fill bar reading off of the percentages. So that's all I did, is I just added a handle, did a little bit of little effects here, layering shadows and just dressing it up a little bit. But functionality-wise, it's exactly the same. So just wanted to show you guys what is possible very simply in making one of these bars. You can do the exact same thing to flip it vertical. You got to change out your height for your width for your height, you know, when it comes to all the measurements and stuff. But you get the idea. I think you could extrapolate how to do this as a vertical versus a horizontal pretty simply. But very little math is involved. Pretty straightforward. I hope this was educational, that you've learned something to make, you know, like it isn't that hard to create some of these looks and feels and not have to use the default interface. So leave any comments. I'll have the files downloadable below for you to see this finished piece here, and you can modify it from there for your needs if you'd like to. Thanks for watching.